the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Two Brothers and an Idea. I am. They call me Ferdinand, the bringer of balance, leader of many disciplines, and one of your hosts of the of Two Brothers and an Idea.
And you done got to the wrong show.
And I'm here with my homeboy, an amazing brother out there in Texas, brother from another mother, Tetaun. What's going on, brother?
Yo, man, peace and love, man. I appreciate this conversation. I'm glad to be back on deck with you, as always. We have been having some amazing dialogue, and always these conversations are meant for people who are seeking for understanding. And so I'm just grateful to have this moment to discuss the things that we're going to discuss. Besides, we got a special guest today, and I'm really looking forward to digging in and getting her feedback, her perspective, and hearing her story.
All right, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest? I'm ready to ask her some questions.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, man, we want to make sure that your audience understands that this is a community conversation, and we are very clear that we are communicating from a very unique place, authenticity, right? So the idea is this: if you like to follow, share, or even be a part of this conversation, be mindful that the link will be available to you. You can follow us on YouTube and many other platforms. So before we get started, I want to say this for housekeeping rules. When we say the people down the hall or the people over here, over yonder, that's just a word play to identify those who don't agree, don't understand, or have no idea or no perspective whatsoever, right? And so we just want to make sure you understand that if you ever hear somebody segue to that. Other than that, I want to introduce to you a good friend of mine. I've known her for many, many years. She is an extraordinary trainer, an extraordinary life coach, a woman with integrity who's done a lot of great things. As a matter of fact, she is the first melanated African-American, African descent trainer of the Scrum and Agile community. She's the first and the only. And so as a co-owner of Bearded Eagle, we want to invite Mrs. Lizzie Morris to the platform because we're going to dig in about your purpose and how to develop your purpose. And again, let's give her a warm welcome, Ferdinand. This is my good friend, Lizzie Morris. Pleased to have you on the show today.
Hey, Miss Lizzie, how you doing?
I'm good. Lovely to meet you and to meet your audience. Audience, hello. Hello, hello, hello.
Thank you for coming out and being with us tonight.
Oh, I am. This is one thing about technology, right? That we can still be in our comfortable environments. I'm in my office and still able to chat. This is the wonderful thing about tech.
All right. Well, Lizzie, first of all, we want to thank you for your time and just to be able to come on the show and speak with us. I think that what you have to share has great value. And I think there are some connections there that I think people will discover. So first and foremost, we would love to know a little bit about you, your journey to you, your journey to me, your journey to this platform, whatever it may be. Can you just talk a little bit about yourself? Because I can do no service talking about you. I've worked with you in business for many, many years. And so I'm just grateful to be able to have this conversation. So we want to know a little bit about you. Ferdinand is meeting you for the first time. So if you can just talk a little bit about you, where you come from. I know they're noticing that accent there. And so let's just dig in real quickly to get a perspective on who is Lizzie Morris.
Who is Lizzie Morris today is a woman who has come across the pond, lived here in America, and I have to say I'm very much addicted to Texas. The idea of living someplace else now is like, couldn't possibly do it. And I've come from what I want to call my emerging womanhood into being what I would classify now as a mature woman. So I'm not going to say, well, I'm definitely would say I'm at that place, right, where I can give some advice and talk about some things now. And I'm blessed that I can talk about things in business because I've been in business for many years. I've ran a startup and took it to a very huge amount of success, and experienced also how economies and shifts and changes of winds and changes of how people perceive people can affect your business, and have undergone those things. And I've journeyed through relationships, right? So relationships of friends, relationships of love, and seeing how those can affect you in the way that they can lift you up, and they can also tear you down from the outside and the inside. And I've experienced how the journey of finding who you are and where you are and what you are is so important to being able to magnify your purpose, so that you finally understand the journey you have been on has been setting the stage for all the people that is you're supposed to reach and impact. And so today, what I believe in is I am positioned to impact the people I'm called to. Even though I may not know who they all are yet, and they may not know. But when we meet, that point of destiny and purpose will cause a collision and allow the impact to be made.
You cooking. You came out the gate cooking. You come out the gate cooking. I like that. So I know that you are your hometown. Where are you originally from? And can you talk about a little bit about how you came to America and established business and got involved in the tech world?
So I was originally born in Birmingham, United Kingdom.
Okay.
And was raised in Handsworth, which was an area where there were lots and lots of people of color, right? Lots and lots of them. And the more people from the diaspora. So you're talking about people from Trinidad, people from Jamaica, people from Barbados. So I was raised around a community, huge community of people from the different islands in the UK, along with obviously what you'd call homegrown, born and bred British, right? But I also had the privilege of being raised around a lot of Asian Indians, right? From India and people from Pakistan. And so my friends and my neighbors were very, very diverse, right? So from childhood, I've been around people from different places, but yet we all united in the sense of being British, because it's very interesting, that culture, right? The British culture almost like supersedes everything else, and everything else comes under it. Whereas it's the flip here, right? The American culture doesn't rise higher than what people are individually, and then it comes afterwards, unless it is America to others outside. Then everybody is American first. A very interesting dichotomy that's different from what I was kind of raised around. And I ended up coming to America, and I have to say it wasn't willingly at the time when I came. I came, right. So I had always said, I don't want to live in America. I'd always said that. Although I visited here a lot. I used to come back and forward here maybe once or twice a year for conferences. Right. But I really liked England. And, at the time I had a business there, and I was into starting to do property development and stuff. So I didn't think about here, although my mom was here, and my sister was here, because they're both in the medical profession. But it hadn't been one of those things. But then I married a white American from Texas who decided he wanted to move back. Right. And it was like, well, that wasn't the agreement. We weren't going to live there. So then we moved back here, although it was then the first time for me. And it was a real culture shock, essentially, especially coming to Texas.
Yes.
Right. Coming to Texas, all places in the world. It was a huge culture shock.
Yes.
And when I came here, it was, trying to understand how every state had its own laws, even to the rules at the school, things that the school could do because they had a legal system that was just for schools in Texas, because I remember them taking the children's phones. And I'm like, I said, so you're stealing my children's phones? You can't do that. You want your property? Are you crazy? What are you doing? You don't have the right to do that. I said, that's ridiculous. And then, of course, the superintendent showed me these. Says, well, actually, we do. I said, you are kidding me. you have written laws to allow you to do these things. And they stand and they're like, you're not from here. And I said, no, this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And so you have your own laws outside of like the law of your country, which is then when I started to understand the idea about state versus federal and just kind of understand that the system is just so different. And I came to the conclusion at the time that America isn't really a country. It's lots of small countries, right, that have come together claiming to be one country, but they're not, because they all have their own very, very separate identities.
Right.
Which explains in so many ways why the concept of unity is hard here. And I think what we should be aiming for instead of unity is actually collaboration.
I think
so.
I think that before you go, I gotta say this, Ms. Lizzie. I think that today is definitely the day for you to be on this podcast. Really appreciate you being here. But I definitely think that what you just talked about, that's something we got to circle back to on another episode. We got to touch what you just talked about. That's very, very important. And your perspective is going to be different than most people. So thank you for giving us a snapshot of that. But I want to dive into that with you on another episode.
So Lizzie, we understand, like, at this point, you are now or had become an acclaimed Scrum Master, a Scrum Agile trainer. So how did you even, first of all, what is Scrum? And how did you even become a Scrum Master or even get involved with Scrum to begin with?
So that is so crazy, the story of how that happened, right? So let's since we're going to use these lexicon words, let me break it down for your audience. So Scrum in its simplest term is a way for you to manage work and bring people together to focus on one outcome. And the idea is to focus on that outcome within a time box of, say, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, but no more than a month. And once you've got that outcome, to really inspect it and say, is it doing for us what we expected? And is it helping us serve our customer the way we expected?
Right.
And is that giving the customer the value that the customer expected? And in turn, will we as an organization receive value as a result? Right? That's a very simplified way to talk about what Scrum is. So just a way to manage work, right? And pull people together to do so. So if you got a whole bunch of people, right, who you're trying to get to do a project, trying to do some work, you can use the Scrum framework to help them organize, mobilize, and actually implement that. So that's what it allows you to do. And it's based on the concept of the system of empiricism. And empiricism simply is saying, let's learn from experience. So let's keep experimenting. Then let's make sure we take a pause to look at the results of our experiment to decide, is it giving us what we want? Right? Yes. And if it isn't, let's pivot and then do what I like to say, make your next best move. And then we make that next best move, look at it again and say, okay, now what do we have here? Is it giving us what we want? Right? And is it delivering us value to us and the people we're doing this for? If it's ticking all those boxes, then let's scale this. Let's do it at mass, because now we know we hit the target and this is really what we should be focusing on. So now let's just mobilize and swarm to do this at mass. But it allows you to take things in a very small bites. You know, it's like taste test. So you're not wasting a lot of money. You're not wasting a lot of people's time, because you're doing these small little taste tests until you get, that's a good bite. All right, let's do this. Now let's make that an entire meal focused around it. So that's it in a very simplistic way that everybody who's listening can kind of understand, right, of what this thing is and why has it made such an impact on the world. And I was introduced to it with immersion, because it was really funny. I had started playing with it when I was managing some people when I was working at Greyhound. This is going like years and years ago, right? I was like saying, it was something I was telling my teams, I think you guys should be doing this. So it was like me as a manager going, go do this. But then I ended up being at a company called USAA, where it was like, hold on, I have to do this now, right? What? And I called it some American cowboy, all kinds of names, right? Until I started to see how it affected people. And that was the thing that magnetized me to it, was look what it's doing to people. So what a lot of people like to often call the fluff of Scrum, the people part is what attracted me. Right? Because
Okay.
yeah, I saw the results, the data, how we were delivering, how we were faster, how communication was a lot clearer, although I was dealing with teams that were all over the world at the same time, right? But we were marching to this goal and we were doing it together, but people were enjoying the journey. I had never seen people enjoy the journey. Right.
Yeah.
The project gets to that nasty part, but people were enjoying it, having fun, and they were sharing their ideas, and everybody had a voice.
Yes. Yes.
I had not seen in my whole entire project career where everybody had a voice.
That's
and
rare.
was respected and heard. Hadn't seen that. Had not seen that.
Very rare.
It's not the kind of traditional way that projects are run. There's certain people within a project model, so to speak, that has the voice that dictate you do as you're told and what have you. But when it came to this, everybody came out with a voice, and everybody's listened to, everybody's respected. And I started to see and experience collaboration.
Wow.
And I realized it looks very different from what a lot of people say when they're, oh, we're a team. But you can have people be teams and they never collaborate.
That's right.
Never.
That's right.
It's
and there's
like
value in
alphas
collaboration.
and betas and, that kind of thing. I'm the head dog. You're the lower dog. So you don't talk. When I come in the room, you shut up. And, are you really trying to say something while I'm talking? What are you doing? It's that kind of thing. It wasn't like that. People were welcomed, and people I hadn't heard talk while I worked with them in the old paradigm models were talking now, and they had personalities. And I was like, so hold on, this stuff did that? Like, really? No, what are we really doing that made that happen? And then I was, no, it is this idea of when you step away and you allow people to emerge in their expertise, because that's the failure of so many leaders in so many organizations. They will spend millions to hiring great talent. But then when the talent is in the seat, they don't allow the talent to rise.
Well,
right? I'm glad you brought that up. I'm sorry, Tetaun. I gotta jump in again.
No, you're good. I was thinking about you when I said,
there's an author. I'm not sure if it was Napoleon Hill or if it was Miles Monroe or if it was Les Brown, but one of them spoke about how just what Lizzie just said about how millions and millions of dollars goes to the staff, but you're not paying attention to the staff. You're putting more energy into the product, or you're putting more energy into customer service, and those things are important. Make no mistake about it. But at the same time, who's the one who's providing the customer service? Who's the ones who are making the product? Who's the ones handling shipping and receiving? So those individuals, they need to be treated a certain type of way. They need to be catered to a certain type of way. They need to be nurtured. And if we was to even look at them like plants, they need to be fertilized properly, right? So they cultivated properly. And then what happens is, like you said, now we get explosive growth in the business because we got explosive growth out of each individual who is a part of that tree.
Absolutely. One of the things leaders struggle with today, it's like companies wide over talk about accountability, right? They feel people don't want to be accountable. And that in that same thing, there's no accountability, but yet they want innovation. And having those two things requires for a person to feel safe in the environment that they're working in, right? And feel like if I give an idea and it doesn't work out the way I thought, I'm not going to have this crazy backlash and my career be, kind of blacklisted in the company and I can never do anything again. And if people feel that way, they won't raise up with ideas.
They won't.
What you will get is, because there's always those people who have very bold personalities, right? You're always going to have those. There's one or two of them exist. And sadly, most people think because people have a bold personality, it qualifies them to be a leader. And it actually doesn't.
Right.
Because some people have bold personalities, but they're not nurturers. They're not carers. They're not people who build people up. That's not part of them. They're just these very loud, I got an idea, so they're like this kind of amplifier. Well, I wouldn't
Right.
take an amplifier to grow somebody. I
No,
take an
no, no. You don't want to
amplifier
do
and
that.
put them on the stage and put them
Yeah.
out there to amplify my message. But I've got to find something else and people with different characters who will take the time to pay attention to each person. It's why right now I've been promoting this system called Smile,
Okay.
right? And the concept of Smile is that as a leader, when you think about smile, so you pause to smile, right? As you do that, you think, am I being supportive?
Okay.
Am I motivating my people? And am I inspiring them? And it will seem instant because a lot of people find motivation and inspiration the same. I don't see them the same. I can motivate you and kind of put a spark underneath and you go boom, but then the spark dies down. But if I inspire you, I plant something inside of you that speaks to you long after I'm gone, and it grows and it grows, and it then gives you self-motivation, right?
Uh-oh.
So
Okay.
now I've motivated, I've inspired, and then the L comes, I'm listening,
I got to jump in again, Tetaun.
right? And then the last one
Oh,
is
Logan,
E,
come on.
which is I empathize. Because I
Okay.
can't empathize if I hadn't listened, because I have no understanding, no concept, no, I don't understand the context. But now I've listened, I've heard where you are, I've heard what you are in this moment. So now I can empathize, and now I can go back to supporting because I know what I need to support in you, because I've done the listening. So it becomes like this just continual cycle of how anybody who's calling them a leader, a person who wants to lead people, grow people, nurture people, build people, should kind of just think of this concept, simple concept, smile.
Smile.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. That's some great advice. Smile, everybody, and all of y'all out there who got some empathetic feelings within you. You really connecting with this message. Like, love, share, comment, subscribe. We want your support, and we got to show some love to Sincere King. Thank you so much.
My man.
I see you to learn a little bit about Scrum from Lizzie. And thank you for the love on the analogy, because we've got to get these messages out how everyone understands them, right? We want to meet everybody where they're at and make sure that this knowledge gets out there, so however we can get it out, we're doing our best. But we got Miss Lizzie up here today. She's about to give us some more, so y'all strap in, put your seatbelt on. We're about to go for a ride.
So Lizzie, let me ask you this, and correct me if I'm wrong here. So you talked about your experience living in Europe or in England, right? And that journey into the workspace, getting adjusted to living in America. You gave a little drive-by about Scrum and what that means in a very small way. So tell me, how did you become a trainer? How did you become this elite life coach? I mean, so you transitioned in a matter of rapidly, a matter of 10 years. Is that correct? So can you just give us a little?
Yeah, I think when I'm thinking about it, I guess so. When you think from being introduced and loving it to then I officially was licensed in 2016, I believe, either 2016 or 2015. I was licensed to start training. And the reason I started training, to be honest, why I even tried to go to that level, was the person who was running the Scrum Alliance at the time. Her name was Carol McEwen. And I was at a gathering and she's like, Lizzie, it's time you went for your license. I said, and I looked at her like, what license are you talking about? Right? What do you mean? You should be a trainer. We don't have enough women. And the minute I heard, oh, we don't have enough women.
Right.
I'm like, girl power. Right. Because I loved the community so much. It was this place where I felt accepted, and my personal ethos of how I thought the world should be, how people should care about each other, love each other, and work with each other. I was seeing it in these gatherings I would go to, right? I would see people just kind of doing this whole collaborating thing, listening, respect. I would see this thing. I thought, oh, I love this. If the world could be like this, what a great world would be. Because, I'm an idealistic person. And so I was like, well, if Carol told me I should, I guess maybe I should.
Yeah.
But it wasn't on my radar. Understand that? I had because I didn't think I knew enough. I didn't think I'd been around long enough. And do you know what I mean? The trainers that I had been trained by and stuff, I just thought, oh my gosh, and I'm not that old either, because most of the trainers at that time were older people, right? Kind of like in their, late 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. It was that kind of age, right? So you're constantly around this wisdom, which can be very intimidating. But they weren't intimidators. They were like this. Come on in, come on in, come on in, come on in. And what was nice at the time, although in most of the rooms I went to, because, back then the Scrum Alliance was a lot smaller too. I was probably only myself and my business partner who were people who looked like us, right? There just weren't a lot of us going to those things at the time. But you didn't feel like, oh, I'm the only one in the room, because it didn't have that vibe. Again, like I told you, it had this vibe to it. Come on in, everybody, come on in. Let's share ideas. So it just didn't have that. And that's what I loved about it. So, I began this journey. And at the time, already had the business at this time, right? So the business was like kind of going quite well at this time when I was doing this.
And that's Bearded Eagle, right?
Bearded Eagle. So Bearded Eagle had been formed. We had clients. We had, consults we were doing. I was working with some European banks at the time, flying back and forward. I was doing curriculum design for some other organizers. There was a lot of things I was doing in the space then, right? And helping large organizations walk through transformations and all this kind of stuff. So when it came to becoming, a trainer, it was like, okay, I got to switch my head a bit. And it's not because I wasn't training organizations, but it's the idea of, how do I let them see that they can trust me with this?
I see. And so you basically became the first Black female of the Scrum community in the world.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
At the time, I wasn't as cognizant of the impact of that, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because when I got on the journey, it was just this journey of love and admiration. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to help my community, and I'm going to help put more women on the map. So that was the, kind of the push. Right. But as I journeyed, I began to stumble into other things that I wasn't expecting.
Okay.
And, it's this concept again. And when I talk to my English folks in the community, because the Agile community is global, right? It goes all across the world.
Right.
They're like, well, it's that American, bleep, bleep, bleep that you walked into. And I'm like, huh? He goes, that's what it is. Because, we don't do that kind of crap here. But it just showed that it can be hard for you to go away from your inbred culture. Even when you're so intelligent, your base natures can come out because it's still like in your DNA of habit.
Right.
And you don't even realize it until something triggers it. And sometimes you don't even realize you've been triggered. Because it's not in like your frontal cortex. The thought process isn't here. Like, we shouldn't let people who are so-and-so into this community. We shouldn't allow so-and-so people to do. It's not here in your brain that it's happening. It's in a hard drive.
Yeah.
That's lost way back there, and it's sending these messages. Right. And so when I experienced that, it was very wounding. Because I'd had all this before. And then all of a sudden, wow, why did it change? What's going on? But again, I think from stories I've heard, things I've even experienced in other stuff, I've always said, it's something Bearded Eagle, one of our philosophies that we've always said, you can't erase culture, but you can evolve it.
That's right. Good philosophy. Good philosophy.
Yeah, because you can't erase the past. And I think so many times we try to eradicate the past and erase it like it never happened, cover it over with a sheet and, put it down there. But it's by understanding what the past was, you get to say we can evolve. We can
Right.
take the knowledge
Right.
and now put the thought process right here. This tends to be our habit to do this. Put it up here in your frontal. So when you see it, know that's what it is. Okay, so these are the things we're going to do to put boundaries in so that we don't go to this default behavior. We can be the people we're actually wanting to be. Because I fundamentally believe, and again, call this the optimism, Lizzie. I fundamentally believe that people don't want to be bad, cruel, wicked people. I fundamentally believe that, right? So therefore, nobody really willfully wants to do somebody harm.
Right.
Not when you're in their right mind. Now, when people are triggered, when people are stressed, when people go into fear, and every voice they've ever heard that then echoes that fear, and they've heard in their childhood, they overheard conversations, all this thing, they will come up and right? So now they're not being who they're choosing to be. They're going back to a very base, reactive, almost animalistic nature, right? Not human anymore. Because humanity doesn't really want to be nasty. Now, personal fundamental belief. Everybody would people would disagree with me. I know that to be true, but that's my fundamental belief that I hold about people.
So, having that fundamental belief, going through the challenges that you had to go through, and I do believe it took a while for you to get certified to become a trainer. But once you became a trainer, you just took off, and you were hitting all areas as far as India, Africa. As a matter of fact, your training sessions and your classes were filled more so with people coming from all over the world, coming to Dallas to learn about Scrum. Now, for our audience, I want to reset the conversation. We're talking about, we've had a brief discussion about Scrum, what Scrum is. And so, Lizzie, can you just give us a little drive-by with the components of Scrum and why Scrum is important today in this tech space?
So a lot of the tech that we experience today, right, has come from teams who are using pieces of agility. So when we think about Scrum, we also think about Agile, right? So a lot of people hear Agile Scrum, Safe this, and all these different words. But the heart of Agile, this is what I call the heart of Agile, says we are uncovering better ways and it says developing software, because understand it was software developers and people from that space who came together and collaborated around trying to change the world of work. So when they did, they came up with that statement, right? We're uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. And through this, we've come to value. And then they came up with 4 fundamental values, right? Which was individuals and interactions over processes and tools. It was working software over comprehensive documentation. It was customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And it was responding to change over following a plan. Now, everybody can kind of understand when you look at that, right? But the lean was, again, to the human aspect. So individuals and interactions. What is it that a human's going to use? Stuff that actually works. Right. And what other humans are we talking about? Well, we're talking about customer humans, right? Because they're the people who are going to pay for stuff and get the benefit from it. And how do we make sure we're always serving them the best way we can by being able to respond to the changes that they're going through as businesses, as they're trying to serve their customers, right? So when you look at those fundamental values now, you're like, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
That kind of makes sense, right? And then there's 12 principles that go behind that, which I won't go into. But when you look at those 4 values, and now you come over to Scrum, right? And what a lot of people don't understand was that Scrum kind of came quite a few years before Agile came into space, right? So now Scrum has a value system of its very own, which is when it comes to the human part, it's saying humans, when we come together to work, let's have these 5 values. Let's focus. Let's be open. Let's respect each other. Let's stay committed. And let's always make sure we got courage. So it's 5 very human-y things that we must be able to acquiesce around so that we can work together. Makes sense, right? And then when you look at those 5 values sit on 3 pillars, right? Transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So that comes where I simplify it to the next best move. But when you think about transparency, it's saying everything we're doing, we want it to be clear. We don't want to
Right.
hide anything. So Scrum always has tools that allow everybody to see everything, right? So there's lots of different types of tools that they use so you can see what it is we've said we're going to do and see what it is we're all focusing on. And then the I stands for inspect. As we're doing this thing, we are going to be inspecting.
Okay.
But why are we going to inspect? We're not expecting because we're looking to point fingers and blame people. We're going to inspect so we can understand how to adapt.
That's it.
And that's those fundamental pillars of Scrum: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. TIA, right? So when you simplify TIA, it's find the next best move and make it.
I see. So let me ask you this. And I share often in a very Tetaun way about what Scrum is and what I understand Scrum is. So when we go into McDonald's now, or when the people down the hall and the people over here on the other side of the neighborhood go to McDonald's, right? And they see these kiosk machines or the ATM machines or all the innovative technology that involves AI or computers or some kind of machine. Was that all discovered and processed through a Scrum or an Agile, a Scrum Master?
You're going to find, like, when we go, if I take us all the way back to IBM and IBM making the first big computer, right, kind of thing. That whole big computers thing came out of something that was called RUP.
Right.
Which was an earlier method that embraced this concept of let's keep looking, let's see how we can make this thing better. And then it evolved its journey to where Scrum came about, right? Because Scrum said the reason Scrum even came into being was there was a huge major problem in an organization that had to be fixed. And all the best people had walked out. It was like, okay, well, how are we going to do this now? Right? So the creator, and legally called the co-creator, Jeff Sutherland, right, was inspired with this framework. And he'd read papers because he's an extreme studious person. He had read papers, and all these papers had kind of come together to said, okay, let's pull people together. Let's pick something we're going to focus on for a small window of time, and let's just swarm it. So bring all of our talents together, right, to make something we can see and we can show to the customer, and that it works. Key, it works, right? And then let's just keep building on it. So when you look today, I'm gonna list some companies to you, right, that you all have heard of. You look at Tesla. The reason Tesla led in the space.
I was just about to ask you about Tesla.
Yeah, and their software became a standard and they could update it so fast was because that was all done with Scrum. Right? You look at BMW, and the BMW then tracked to want to, come alongside and have the car. BMW took an Agile framework. So Scrum has started doing that. Right? You look at companies like Lego, GM,
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola, what rescued why Netflix became Netflix today. Wow.
We get some good stuff here, Ferdinand.
They weren't originally that, right?
Nice.
That's what they used and then took themselves. Cars.com. So many companies have taken these methods, from this whole Agile space and applied them and got great results. Now, a lot of times, when something happens, we want to become rigid and almost make it godlike, right? So our community has suffered in many ways from that, and just from humans get greedy and all the rest of it. So we've had many outbreaks and different things that have emerged and evolved and cut off, and I ain't talking to you no more, so I'm going to go find, form my own little other version. But when you look at every single one of the frameworks down there, they all in some way or the other, when it comes to the actual implementation part where the team works together, they're utilizing those Scrum methods.
Yeah, that's you broke that down very well. And I think, as I was listening to you, as you were sharing the basics, I remember serving in the military while I was stationed in Japan. And I was working at a particular command, and they were implementing Lean Six Sigma, Black Belt. I heard the name water cooler. So how different is Scrum in comparison to Lean Six Sigma, and everybody want to get their black belts and the green belts, to water cooler? What makes Scrum so unique and so different?
See, what a lot of people don't realize, Scrum was extremely influenced by Lean. So all Scrummers are Lean. They are looking to mitigate waste. altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So by working in a smaller time box, we're not going to spend 2 months on something. We're going to focus on it from a week to 30 days. Let's just focus on this. That allows us to eliminate all the majority of waste, like motion, going from one place to another, and transportation, moving this person and this thing and this process from here to here. You're eliminating the things, and because you have a team that's collaborating and being cross-functional, the one thing that one of the wastes that a lot of companies do is not utilizing talent, right? Underutilizing talent. Like, you ain't taking care of your talent. You're not even knowing who's talented with what.
Right.
But in the Scrum team, the formation of the Scrum team has a product owner. What's the purpose of the product owner? The purpose of the product owner is to have the vision, the concept of the outcome that you want, this big picture. Be able to speak to us the big picture and speak to us how this big picture is going to change the world and give impact. And then turn this big picture over to what we call the developers, the people who are going to do the work to bring it all together, the people who are going to put the solution together, and they're going to work to make this, this thing come to life and give you your outcome. All these developers have different skill sets.
Right.
But you've got them collaborating and learning from each other, which that's where that cross-functionality comes into. So before I was an expert at cake decorating. That's what I did, man. I did cake decorating. Don't tell me about what's going in the cake. I don't care so much, right? I'm cake decorating. But now I might pair with somebody who is a cake maker to understand the dynamics of maybe how the sponge is made. And that now is going to help me to be an even better decorator. And let's just say it gets really busy because I understand the fundamentals. I can make sure I whip the eggs the right way, right? I can get that batter started. So now I have more breadth to me versus just the depths of my detailed knowledge. And we like to call that T-shaped individual, right? So it's this idea that as I work with others, I get to share their knowledge and learn from them. And in learning from them, I bring more to the team. So I don't just have one person who's always the expert.
So the Scrum team, how is that set up? You have your Scrum Master, and then you have your teams. And then, so can you walk us through what that looks like on a Scrum setup?
We've talked about this product owner, right? That's got this got the vision, is the voice that's talking to the customer and managing your stakeholder relationships and managing the business to make sure everybody's happy with the outcome, right? And you've got the developers now who are making all the stuff happen. And then you've got the Scrum Master. And the job of the Scrum Master is really to facilitate an environment and to empower everybody with what they need so they can get this job done. Right. So it's not saying that they're the manager or that they're the major expert, but there's somebody who really understands what Scrum is and understand what Scrum is there to help you achieve, understand what agility is, and help people then to be able to do the things within this framework that empowers them. They get rid of all those things that come in the way. Because just think about it, when you're working with teams sometimes, right? Just in regular, and you're an organization, this is what we said we were going to work on, right? But the next thing you know, someone's going, oh, guys, could you now to work on this? Because this is the next best thing. It's so important, right? You're like, well, I thought this was important. No, everybody, you come on, I'll go over here. So you're trying to go this way, and then somebody turns you this way. Well, the nice idea about having a Scrum Master and a product owner can say, hey, back off. Don't talk to my team. Right. No. If there's things that you believe are important, come talk to me. I will validate its importance and decide whether or not that's something my team should be looking at.
So let me ask you this. As a buffer, right? So in a Scrum environment, you have what I have observed and been a part of. You have a team of people working together, as you mentioned. But I also understand that we track the information on a Kanban board, but of course there's a 15-minute sprint in between your meetings. Can you unpack that a little bit and how that works?
What you're talking about, the 15-minute thing, is what we call the daily Scrum, right?
Right.
So there was lots of research done to investigate the most successful teams across the world. And they realized they always had this one meeting per day where everybody kind of came and they sank. Call it a synchronization meeting, right? So the daily Scrum happens for 15 minutes every day. So this whole team of people come together, right? And they synchronize around, this is still what we're working to, this goal. Here's this goal that we're working at. And are we good on this goal, or do we have some stuff that's in the way? So if there is some stuff in the way, that's where the Scrum Master comes in and goes, hey, just put it on my board and we'll figure out how to get rid of it, how to remove it, so you can focus in team on what it is we said we're going to do.
Right.
And if there is somebody struggling in that moment, they can say, I'm going to need some help. And everybody can be like, okay, cool. And then after that 15 minutes, the people who need help, who need to collaborate with others, can go away to a side and then begin to decide, okay, how we're going to work this thing and how we're going to collaborate. And everybody else who's not involved or needed in that conversation gets to kind of just go back to work.
Wow. So if I wanted to get into Scrum, you had people who's watching this conversation, they're interested about Scrum. They want to know how to get into Scrum. Is it a career field that is lucrative? Can you kind of talk a little bit about that and how individuals can sign up for classes? Is there a place they can go to learn more about Scrum, or even if it's expensive? Is it
used to be extremely expensive, right? It used to cost you anything from $1,500, right? And then it niched down a little bit. Now the classes are very accessible, right? So that you can get into them. So you can go and do a basic Scrum class, right? And you have loads of organizations that you can pick from, to be quite frank, as far as the certifications, right? So you can go get yourself a certification and you can decide which certification you think suits you, because your budget may be only a certain budget. Do you know what I mean? Depending on your budget. So based on your budget, you may go to take a course from this particular group, academic group, so to speak, or another academic licensing group, because there's now what, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's about 5 of them in the marketplace today, right? That you can go and look at. One of the things I've started doing for some individuals, because I kind of backed away from teaching, right, the way I used to, is I've been starting to do some what I call fast track stuff. So people who really want to get moving, I'm kind of taking them in privately now. And then I will, based on where their goal set is, I will tell them which certification to get what. And because I have so many contacts in the industry, etc., there's people I can say, okay, you're going to go do a course with this. I booked this for this person with you. You're going to be in that course. You're going to learn this. And these are the things you're going to learn. So I already take them through most of the stuff they're going to learn. Then we can come back and say, okay, now this is how you're going to package yourself based on this to give you this doorway into this industry. Because the industry is huge. It's not just an agile industry, right? Years ago, you would say, oh, it's going to get you into the tech space. But the fact is, tech is everywhere. Does that make sense? It's not just a tech space. So every industry has technology associated to it. Every industry. So the question becomes, which industries are you suited to? Or are you passionate about getting into? So then agility can be used there, right? But just like with back in the day, and in fact, I had this one guy who was a great example. We had this guy who used to sell water. He was a water boy, right? And a friend told him he needed to come get the certification, and he came to us and he got certified. And about 3 weeks later, he got a job with Dell, right? Earning like about, 100 something thousand a year. Now, the way we taught, right? And when I say we, Bearded Eagle, right? The Bearded Eagle trainers, we very much had a very hands-on type of training method, right? So yes, we gave you all the things that the curriculum said you should have, but we always went deeper, because we had this thing of, if we were going to meet you on the street or on a job, we didn't want you to cause us a problem. We wanted you to be equipped. So we went extra to really teach people how you would apply this in an everyday job, right? Which a lot of people, they don't teach that way. Right. So it made us stand out from the crowd, because you knew if you came and got trained by us, you were going to come out with, okay, this is how I start my first 2 weeks on the job. These are the things I'm going to put in place. And it actually got to a point where in India, if certain companies heard I trained somebody and my name was on their license, the person would get hired by the company, because the leaders had been trained by me. They knew what my training was like. They knew how I did things. They knew how in depth I got.
What a sign up to that.
So, Lizzie, okay, yeah. Lizzie did that, okay. So and I'm glad that became a thing, right? But it became a thing because I'm about equipping you to, one, feel confident, right? So to believe that you can do this, right, and build on it. Because I always taught people, you got to keep evolving, got to keep evolving, got to keep evolving, and you can't ever think you've got it all down pat, because you don't.
So as we talk about Scrum, I discovered that you can apply Scrum to your everyday living, whether if it's Scrum Fitness, whether you want to use Scrum in your home. Like in my home, I have the board up and I have all the goals and things that we need to get done and what's done, what's still working, what we need to work on. And so can you talk about ways that individuals can apply Scrum to their daily living and how they can function in an agile space at home?
I would say most of us today, because of just media and the way things are, we're not very good at focusing, right? We get easily distracted.
Right.
So one of the nice things about using Scrum in your everyday life, it can help you focus. So you could sit, let's just say you could sit with yourself on Sunday evening and say, okay, it's Sunday. What would I like to see in my life by next week Sunday? Right? Or what would I like to see my kids do by next week Sunday? What I really like to see, and just kind of put that down as a goal. And then think, what are all the things I've got to do to empower that to happen? So when you're thinking about all the things you got to do to empower that to happen, you're building what we call a product backlog, right? So you're building now this list of all the things I believe I'm going to need to do to make this thing happen. And then you say to yourself, okay, well, I got a week. What can I do from that list in a week that's still going to give me something I can go, yeah, great week.
That's it.
Right? So I take those things that I think I can do in a week, and that becomes my sprint backlog. And that's what I'm going to sprint through in that week. I'm not going to look at the rest of the other list, because the other things are noise now, because I've said, these are the things I believe I can get done this week, right? That I can, when it comes to Sunday again, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be like, yeah, that was a good week.
Yeah.
I use that simple. Just that simple time of sitting with yourself,
right,
and just thinking about, what do I really want,
right,
and making that list,
right,
and then carving from the list that thing that you're like, this is really what I believe I can focus on this week that'll make a difference.
It really helped me a lot. I mean, when I was in Virginia, I had the boards up on my wall, and I was doing all my projects, my shoots, the editing, where things were at, when I had to turn this deliverable in, and how much time it take to do it. And I found it very important, because to your point, it helped you focus on those tasks that you needed to get done, whether if it's a matter of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or even a month. And so I found it very useful in implementing tasks and projects as it related to video and media and the things that we were doing. Well, Lizzie, I really appreciate your in-depth feedback, your perspective on Scrum. I wanted to really dig a little bit more into your coaching and some of the things that you're doing with women. I see you don't have your pearls on yet and your Converse, but as we talked, I noticed what is happening in the fake news world, and how it relates to your life and how you're positioning yourself in the tech space, in the coaching space. So can you connect those dots for me? Because a lot of times we have a tendency of minimizing certain things that we don't understand, right? And so what I'm looking at is, here we have a vice president, right? Who'll be the first of many things, but we also have common people that are operating very, very extraordinary all over the world, doing great things, and have walked in some of the same footsteps or the same shoes as many of these people that we're celebrating. So can you just talk about a little bit about the coaching, some of your experiences, and what you are doing now as the first, and now probably the hedge or the leading hedgeway for future Scrum Masters, future Agile trainers, after watching this conversation? I think you set your stone, your flag into the ground very deeply, man. So I really appreciate the concepts and the things that you're sharing. So what it is that you can share with us in your coaching, Agile, helping women, building businesses space.
So one of the things I've started doing now, and I'm really looking to do more of, is really help women make their next best move. Now, I can't say I won't help men, because I have done, I've got male mentees, right? But there's something about women, and especially women who are over 40. I'm not saying I don't deal with women who are under 40, because I do, right? But women who are over 40, and why I say that is because there's this little voice in your head that says you've gone as far as you can go. And you probably can't do it again. Right? Because a lot of times when you're in the over 40s, life starts to happen, right? So there's times when marriages fall apart, businesses crumble, just life, as I like to say, life is lifing, right? So one of the things I've really been focusing on is helping women see there's more, there's still more. And you as a woman can lift your head high, and all the things you've achieved, they matter, right? And that experience that you've gained in all these years of everything you've done can now be applied to you making your next best move. Right? So it's not over. Don't count yourself out. Menopause may be like kind of kicking so-and-so out of you, but you still got this brain, right? And purpose doesn't die. So it's important to help, like I help product owners discover what the vision is, and organizations and executives see, okay, this is what your vision is. This is the culture you're trying to define for your organization. Those same things now I bring to an individual and say, who is it you really want to be? And who it is you really want to be really does magnetize to your purpose. So it helps us then to begin to unpack what your purpose is and give you articulation for it. So now you can say, I believe I'm here on this planet to make an impact in this way.
I see.
Okay, so how can we package that? What is it that you can start doing today to work towards that? And then just coaching them through that. And a lot of times, a lot of the coaching ends up going around trauma. And this is something that a lot of people don't realize, how traumatized we are. We carry a lot of trauma that life has just made you just go over it. But the fact is, it's still there and it's never been dealt with. So you've never understood why you have certain reactions versus having responses.
I see.
Right. So that's why it's so important to begin. And I always begin with, who do you want to be? So then when we start to trigger intentionally those triggers that live in you because of trauma and pain and grief and disappointment, right? We can unpack those, and you're willing to do the work to go through the unpacking of them because you know who you want to be.
That's it. So you have a book, Journey to Me.
Yes.
And I think that what you've been able to do, and I've been a part of the journey just a tad bit, is create a marketplace, a best kept secret. And I was just telling Ferdinand, I said, Lizzie got so much content everywhere. You Google her name, she has content everywhere. But the collaboration and understanding the timing and how things connect, all of that labor. I know that you're an artist, you write music, you sing. I think you've done a lot of, you have an album or two already. But I want to talk about this Journey to Me book. And what that meant for you as you continue on coaching women to be the best version of themselves.
I think when I wrote the Journey to Me, it was a accumulation of lots of small things that I'd written. And some of them were almost journalistic in nature. And then when I had it compiled, and it became this book. And then I wrote the song, The Journey to Me, Myself, and I, which is where the concept of me, myself, and I came from. Because I realized there is a very deep core to all of us, which I call our spirit core, right? And I call it the core because when you think about a body, the core is what holds everything up, right? Holds you to be able to stand. And when your core is weak, you start bending over. So that core is what I call that me, right? That spirit entity of yourself. And I believe everybody has that. So when I look at myself, I always see myself as, that's kind of my personality that you see. That's the body and, who you interact with. But then there is the I, my resonant purpose. So me, myself, and I have got to come together. And that's why when I talk about the journey to me, myself, and I, is understanding the dimensions of who we are so we can understand where we are and what we are. That's why you always hear me say that. Because it's important. Because who you are today is not who you were yesterday. It isn't. because you've experienced different things. You've lived who you were in your 20s versus who you are in your 40s.
Yeah.
There may be similarities, but you're not the same person.
That's right.
You have been affected and infected, right, by experiences and environment.
Right.
So where there's infection, we want to take that away, right, and purify your system so you are able to make what I call conscious choices. Because if you don't make a conscious choice, you made one by default and it doesn't give you your results because you didn't consciously make your choice. You didn't take the time to pause.
Wow. Now, I'm sorry to interrupt you. How much does the trauma impact your forward progress? Now, you can still do some great stuff and still be able to manage it, but at some point you have to deal with it. So how do you work that through as you ascend up into your career, or people go and do wonderful, great things? You still have to deal with those things that you kind of suppress,
you
right?
Really do. And there's a thing I have called shift, right? But I'm not going to go into shift with you guys. I'll leave that for a different time. But I'm going to walk you through the FFPW, right? Which is a way to kind of think your way through a situation. So the first thing you're going to do is assess, how do I feel? If I say this to you, or you see this picture, or you remember this memory, how does it make you feel? All right. And allow people to feel what they're feeling. Don't dismiss it, because it's valid. And most people, right, from the feeling space will make a move. Right. And when they make a move from the feeling space, it doesn't give them the outcome they want, and they have to deal with the consequences. So if you can take somebody from the feeling space and say, okay, these are your feelings. Let's understand what they are. Now let's look at the facts.
Yes.
Not the feelings, the facts. When this happened, what was going on? So just let's look at the facts. Now, let's go to your perception. Now, see, your perception is built by all your experiences, your environment, and all the things everybody ever said to you, and all the things you ever heard.
Right.
Well, although you have these facts, you have these feelings based on your perception. Because that's why you heard it that way. Right? That's why you saw it like that. Right. Because perception is your filter. So now we understand what built your perception, right? We understand what your feelings were. We understand what the facts are. We can now go to W and take the wisdom. So now we've got the wisdom. We can decide on our next best move. What is going to be our response?
For the next best move.
Right? So now you have outcome. That will get you to your outcome, because you know what you really want.
Right.
But a lot of times, if you move straight from the feeling place and then make a move from feeling, you are not going to get the outcome that you want.
That's catastrophe. That's a collision.
Yeah, and you see, I've experienced it, right? When I do something out of my feelings, right? I've done it, and then you're like, you normally have to say you're sorry. You normally have to go back and explain yourself, right? And
like, why did I do that?
So much damage.
Right.
To people you care about and you love, because you're just going off your feelings. And a lot of times the reason why people do spend so much time in the feeling zone is because when you look at the trauma sometimes happens to people at 6, 5-year-old, right? So when they're triggered, they're no longer 30, 50-year-old. They're a 5-year-old.
There you go. 5-year-old.
And they're a 5-year-old reacting. And God forbid they're a 2-year-old reacting. And that can be the case in certain things. Have you seen a 2-year-old when they have a fit?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, what happens when you have a 60-year-old or you have a 55-year-old executive have a fit? Right? And I have experienced those things happening. They're having a fit. And based on the culture and the environment, they've been allowed to do it. It's been enabled. Well, what if they had a coach? Right, who was coaching them through and observing their behavior and saying, when you said this, is that what you really intended to say? If you were to go back and do it again, would you have said that? So let's understand why you did say what you said. Wow. What's that linked to? Right, so now people can really evolve into who they choose to be.
Well, Lizzie,
what's centered around that?
Well, Lizzie, what's your next big move? I know we're reaching on time a little bit, but I really enjoyed the conversation. I know Ferdinand has enjoyed the dialogue. So, what's your next big move? Your next big move, Lizzie?
For me right now, it's kind of positioning my messaging, because, like you said, I got so much content, right?
Lots of it.
So much content, but it's now really positioning my narrative for today and tomorrow, right? Because tech is always my passion, and technology is moving fast, and I want people to be with it, but I want people to be able to evolve themselves as technology does, because the worst thing that could happen is us become a great technology civilization with just a whole bunch of wounded people. Because God, what will we do with that tech?
Wow.
Right.
You know, this has been a very interesting conversation. I think that what I've learned from listening to the conversation is that purpose does not die. Purpose does not die. And so I believe that this conversation was on purpose. The connections and the dialogue and what we have gleaned from this conversation was on purpose. And so I want to be able to take this information in. I want our audience to take the information in and be able to digest it. So is there a website? Is there a social media platform somewhere where the women can reach out for coaching, or if anybody's interested in becoming a Scrum Master or learning more about Scrum, where can we find that information out from you?
So if you go on LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn. So if you're a LinkedIn person, go to LinkedIn, look for Your Agile Lady. You'll find me there. If you're a tiki-talkie person, right, you can find me on TikTok. I have a profile under Your Agile Lady, which is the business one, but you'll find the I Am Lizzie Morris, which is really kind of content driven, right? For instance, I put up a post last night saying what the most important thing to me right now as an individual is peace. I won't trade it for anything. Not a thing. Most important thing to me, right, is peace. Because when you are peaceful on the inside,
right,
it doesn't matter what's going on the outside.
That's right.
You're just able to kind of keep your own rhythm, right? Just keep your pace. So that's the most important to me, is peace. And you can also go to the website and book appointments with me. So if you go to youragilelady.iamlizziemorris.com, which I believe is up, you can reach me there. And on Instagram, you can go to Your Agile Lady and send me a DM. It will ping me and I'll get in touch, right? Because I will reach back. I will definitely reach back, because I just, like I said, my thing is for the next 50 years of my life, I want it to be impactful.
That's right. That's right.
And I want to make impact, and I want to help people make the impact they're destined to make. So if you are today, you know there's something you're supposed to be doing. You know what it is, right? And I don't care how you're packaged or where you come from in the world. I ain't got those issues, right? I just want to help you make your impact. So I'm here willing to do that, help you discover who you are today and who you want to be. Because it's so easy to still hold on to your past identity.
Yes.
That was simply the path to get you to who you are today.
Right here.
Who are you today, and who are you going to be tomorrow? And that's what I want to help people be able to discover.
That's really powerful. Miss Lizzie, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate you. We've got a couple of people who I gotta put this comment on the screen from Mr. Ward, Razul Ward. I'm sorry for covering up your face, Miss Lizzie. I love this. I have the opportunity of working with a Scrum Master, working for the Federal Reserve.
Yes.
Like a lot of team building as Scrum Master. The amount of value that you've given today,
Russell Ward.
I really want to make sure that I thank you for this, because you've given us a crash course in purpose, a crash course in valuing our employees and valuing the people in our lives. You've given us a crash course in so many different virtues, principles, and different values that we really should be operating in on a daily basis to give us that ability to have everlasting life more abundantly.
Yeah.
Thank you so
We all
much.
want community, right? Everybody wants community, but you're never going to have a great community if we don't align on a value system.
Yes.
Yes. So the book Journey to Me, we got a quick video to kind of showcase the book. I would love those who are interested in following Lizzie Morris. Go ahead and follow her. We're going to post those social media platforms. There's a video that we wanted to just kind of resurface. We shot this video out in, where we at? Long Beach, California.
We were in California somewhere, weren't we? Yeah, we're in California.
Long Beach. And so those that are interested in learning about Scrum, those that are interested in the training or the coaching, you got to check her out. Follow Lizzie Morris. Look at her platforms. Look at her content. You will find a great deal of information and insight. So thank you, Lizzie, once again for joining us. We're going to hit this. We're going to hit it one time with your book. And we want you to stay back in the green room, man, so we can get some more of this knowledge and wisdom that you put down in this conversation. Be a blessing to us and be a blessing to those that are sitting here watching and who will watch it later on and partake in this great conversation. I'm Tetaun, and that was Ferdinand, and we had Lizzie Morris with us. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us on this evening.
To get here. Oh, to get here. The journey to me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I.